Welcome to the G-Spot.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Dgt-G-Spot. Yeah, the G-Spot. Okay, well, for anyone that doesn't know, you know what, I've just realised something. On all of the commentary that I do, and all of the G-Spots that I do, I introduce my co-commentators. Never actually introduce myself. You know what? It's only just occurred to me that I don't do that. Well, I don't have a co-commentator today. Nothing's wrong. It's just because I've been a bit behind. I've been so busy. Been a lot going on in the personal life over the last few weeks. I just need to get this done. Get it producing so I can go and have a sleep. No Ray with us this evening, so we are going to thrash through these. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what the Dgt-G-Spot is all about, well, there is a thing called the Dynamic GT League, where we race on, it used to be GT Sport, it's now GT7, God knows what it'll be in the future. Especially if GT7 doesn't up its game in terms of things to release for the game, like new tracks, newer cars, better cars, race cars, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so we have a racing league on GT7 where we're basically a group of friends that like to do a bit of racing, and that's what we do. We don't take it too seriously. But we do have rules that drivers have to adhere to, and sometimes they don't do that, which means that drivers are more than welcome to put a report in or to request something to be looked at on the G-Spot so that everybody can learn from it. Because of that, that's what the G-Spot is for. So if people report things, we can the stewards will do their bit, they'll look into it, make a decision on it, and then we have the opportunity to show what the stewards have seen. And also we get to have a look at some of the weird and wonderful things that happen on the racetrack as well. Now, admittedly, in this one there is no weird and wonderful. There is just reports and a request really to look at something. So no funny moments really on this one. So straight to business. So I'm not going to keep you too long, hopefully, and we'll get thrashing through this, shall we? G1 Race 3 report. What the fuzz? Okay, so from Rich, Goodwood, even lap 10 or 11, Jason overtook me in the fuzz. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, in DGT League we have a thing called a fuzz zone. It's a fuck up zone, and it's where we don't allow people to overtake, and we have rules regarding that. So it would appear someone may have done something a little naughty. So let's see what the stewards say. Jason broke the fuzz rules by overtaking in the fuzz. It is noted that Jason did have lag during the race, and the admins would be interested to see Jason's footage if it shows Rich as being off track or Jason ahead into the fuzz. The steward's verdict is Jason completes an unfair overtake in the fuzz, which is a stage 1 penalty, which is a minus 2 points to his championship standings. So basically, with the no overtaking zone, there is a point where we say if whoever is ahead at this point, you have to let them go and have the corner. There's only a couple of locations we do it, and it's for very good reasons. We've been through this loads on other videos. Feel free to check them out. Now, I think Jason may have been a bit surprised at getting a penalty on this one, so we'll have a look at the footage, and this is exactly what I was saying earlier about it gives us the opportunity to actually go and see it. So Rich and Jason battling into the no-no square, and then we'll see them coming through the chicane with Jason just ahead. Now, the start of the fuzz zone here has been changed. It is the end of the curb on the left-hand side, so as Rich is going through his corner, this curb on the left, whoever is in front at the end of that curb, it is their corner, and Jason comes past. Now, we'll look at it from Jason's view now. As we can see, there is a bit of lagging going on here. And there was quite a bit of discussion during this race from the drivers about Jason having lag, and that's why the stewards would be interested to see what Jason's footage may have shown. So as we get to the end of the curb here, on these sort of replays, it's very difficult to say in absolute certainty who is ahead or who isn't. So what we'll do is we'll actually pause it in a moment and have a look. Now, interestingly, on approach to the corner, Jason is quicker than Rich, and he's got every right to attempt the overtake. So as he's closed up here, he is quicker. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Jason attempting the overtake here. Now, if the fuzz zone was where it was previous on GT Sport, Jason probably would have been all right here because it had been further down the road, but the topography has changed a little bit. So as we look at this, yes, Jason is making a move, but he is behind. And one of the things that we say in the rules with the fuzz is if it's very close to call, the person making the overtake should be the one backing out. So in this situation, Jason really, if he's not sure if he's ahead or not, should be backing out. But obviously it's easy for us to look at it on a replay and go, okay, this is showing Jason as not being ahead at the start of the fuzz. The start of the fuzz zone. So as we get a little bit closer to the end of the curb, you'd think that is it. It's not. We can see that on this view, yeah, Jason is still just a little bit behind Rich Blues. We'll go on a little bit further, so we are actually at the end of the curb. And we can see again that Rich Blues is just ahead. Now, the other key point which SRI or Ray would mention is on the timing tower on the left hand side of the screen, Rich Blues' name is above Jason's name. So on the timing tower, it is still showing Rich Blues as ahead of Jason, and that is one of the things the drivers can use as a guide of, okay, am I ahead or not? Obviously, we do try and take into account that there could be extenuating circumstances. In this situation, though, unfortunately for Jason, on the view that Rich had and the view that other stewards have had, it does look like Jason has attempted the overtake, which is absolutely fine, no problem, but did not get ahead until way after the start of the fuzz zone. So unfortunately for Jason, it is a -2 point penalty, and hopefully that's cleared up any queries Jason may have had. But as it was mentioned in the steward's report, they would actually be quite interested to see what Jason saw, because with the lag, he could have seen Rich Blues in a completely different position. He may have actually been showing as being ahead. And in that scenario, it would be very, very difficult to apply a penalty for that. So we would actually really like to see that footage if he happens to have it available. Okay, that's that one done. So let's crack on with your next one. G2, Race 3, Disappearing Druids. Okay, so this one isn't really a report, but so from Conrad, lap 4 or 5 into Druids, I have nowhere to go as Nelly cuts across and is sending him sideways into SGP. I don't want him punishing, just maybe a look at to see what could have been done differently. So this is one for being brought to the driver's awareness. So we'll take a look at that. So let's see what the stewards have said, or the admins, or the stewards, or whoever it may be. The stewards have seen the incident, and it would appear Nelly should not have moved across on Conra, and would advise Nelly to be more aware of his surroundings. Okay, I think that's a fairly straightforward comment. So don't really need to see the footage, do we? Well, of course we're going to look at it. Right, okay, so interesting one this. Now, whether Nelly using VR plays a factor here or not, I don't know, but we see Conrad do a lovely little switchback. It's actually a very nice switchback. Gets up alongside Nelly very early, and that's a key point to this scenario. As the camera changes, Nelly gets sideways, and then Connor gives him a bit of a bump. So, as we watch this again, so this is from Connor, and Nelly's actually to the right-hand side at the moment. So both drivers should know they were side by side down the main straight, and Conrad makes the move, so he's already up alongside, he's entitled to the space. Connor does brake that little bit earlier, as you would have to on that inside line, but Nelly does move across, and we'll get to that in a moment as well. So here's Nelly defending into one, so he knows Conrad is there or thereabouts. Now, he doesn't get a chance to cover Conrad off, but he should know that Connor is already there. But as it comes to the braking, he does move over to the right, and there is contact with the front of Connor's car. So this is where we would say Conrad is more than within fair range. He is entitled to the space at the corner. Yes, he's braked a little earlier, as he should do, but as Nelly's on the brakes, he can't just move across. So this is one where Nelly really would need to try and be that little bit more aware. He should be aware that he's there now, but it's that just a little bit of a move over towards the corner, moving over too soon. Now, with Nelly not having access, I don't think he's got access to the radar while he's got the VR headset on. All he's got is being able to look into the mirrors. And I mean, I can imagine it can be quite deceptive sometimes. I mean, as an example, for anyone that uses a steering wheel on these racing games, I would like you to try this test. Go to a circuit like Route X, right? It's like a 15 mile or whatever it is, just massive oval. You don't need the whole thing. Just want you to get up to full speed and drive in a straight line. Then close your eyes. When you open them again, see if you're in the same lane as you was before you closed them, because chances are you're not gonna be. Now, this also can happen when drivers press the button to look in the rear view mirror. It only takes a slight move of the hands and they can be moving across. So for Nelly, if on the VR he's looking in his mirrors or he's looking around, his hands could also be moving his steering wheel a little bit, so his car could drift. Does that mean he would get away with not getting any penalties? No, not at all. It would make no difference. So in a situation like this, obviously it is down to Nelly to leave the space there for Conrad. So I like that Conrad sent this one in to be looked at, because it does give a good view of Connor braking that little bit earlier for being on the tight line and making sure that he could hold that tight line, Nelly just not being aware enough and moving across. Okay, that's that one done. Let's move on to the next one. G3 Race 4 report. Druid's motion. Okay, so this is from SRI. This is a report. Second corner, last lap. Was I entitled to make a move? If not, I understand what happens within the rules. So this is SRI actually reporting himself. I believe it was a move on Conrad. So yeah, I mean, I would guess that SRI has gone back and had a look at this, wondering whether it was a fair overtake. So let's see what the stewards say. The writing is quite small on my screen. SRI is within fair range to be attempting an overtake. SRI was in control of his car and made the apex. However, it seems it may have come as a surprise to Connor, as Connor turned in for the apex. Steward's verdict is a fair overtake. Now, something I do want to quickly mention is sometimes it may seem that the stewards are not saying much on these notices, but there is always a lot more information. We just try and keep it very simple, short, sweet and basic, especially when we're going to be looking into it like this. So by saying fair overtake, obviously it hasn't given loads of description about it, but we're going to have a look now. Now, it's very similar to the previous one we've looked at in a way. Out of turn one, SRI and Conrad. Now, SRI is a little bit further back than Conrad was, and then gets up alongside a little bit later. There's a little bit of contact, and both carry on. Again, we'll see here SRI going for the inside. Now, Connor doesn't cover it or defend it at all. And as was mentioned, SRI is in control of his car, and there is a little bit of contact. Now, it's not a push to pass this. So the way that I would personally view this is SRI is within fair range, and Conrad has left the space and then goes to take the corner quite late. SRI has gone into the space, has got there a little late, and there has been a bit of contact and the move has been done. Now, it's been put down as a fair overtake, but the way that I would perhaps add to that is for SRI, there's no real argument about Conrad turning in, because SRI did kind of get there a little later into the corner, but he did get there fairly. And for Conrad, there's no sort of argument from Conrad's side for an unfair overtake, because SRI was within fair range, the space was there to go for it, and at the point that Conrad did sort of turn in for the corner was quite late, and he wouldn't have had any chance of realising that SRI was there at that point. So no real issues on this one. Now, if SRI had gone in there understeering and running wide into Conrad, then we're looking at a very different situation, but that's not what happened, so that's the outcome. Fairly simple, I think. Right, let's do the next one. G4 Race 6 report, windmill wipeout. Okay, so this is from Race 6 from Art Pal. 35 seconds in, hit by Jimmy, wiped out. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to take a look at this one then. Very early on in the race, let's see what the stewards have said. Art Pal moves up the inside of Jimmy, who moves across to pass Rich. There is contact and Art Pal spins. The steward's verdict, though, is no penalty. The contact is unfortunate, with no blame attached to either driver, as Art Pal drifts right just as Jimmy moves left. So this is another one where obviously as stewards we could have written so much more detail, but to save everybody's time, we keep it nice and simple, but we're going to have a look at it. So this is the joy of the G-Spot. Okay, so this was at Sardegna, obviously the opening lap of the race. Now, we don't have any F1 rule of, oh, well, it's the opening lap, so yeah, anything goes. That's obviously not the situation. As we're coming through this corner, we did see this as well. We saw Art Pal spinning out on the race footage, collects Demon Art as well. We couldn't know see what had actually happened. So as Art Pal comes through turn 1, all's good there. Ahead we've got 3 wide through turn 2 and then into turn 3. And what we're going to see here is now just a little bit of contact. Now, if you only looked at that view, you might think, well, Jimmy's just moved across and nailed Art Pal. But that's why we look at all of the views that we can. So Jimmy tries to make the move on Rich and SRI into 1. This is where we see him side by side. Now, I don't know if Jimmy backs out here, but he ends up behind. He does actually lift off to try and tuck back up the inside. And there was actually a little bit of contact with Rich Blues there. So we're going to look from Nelly's view now. This gives a decent view. See, now, if you just looked at it from this view, you'd say, well, Art Pal's come steaming into Jimmy. And this is why it's always good to get different perspectives. Now, looking from Demon R here, we can't really see what's happening up ahead. But we will see what is about to happen now and just how lucky Steve F1 was. Obviously, Art Pal's not at fault for the collision there with Demon. Okay, so we'll go on board again with Art Pal from the slightly further view out. Now, one thing I would say is Art Pal is quite far behind Jimmy at this point, and at full speed, it can be quite difficult to know exactly what has gone on there. But what it looks like is that Jimmy's trying to sort of avoid the back of Rich and SRI and do a bit of an undercut as Art Pal is trying to close up. So we see Jimmy sort of did a little breaks, trying to move left, little contact with Rich and carries on. I don't think he'd have even known there was contact with Art Pal then. But what does happen for Jimmy here is, at this point, Art Pal is still quite far back, so he wouldn't be thinking of another car coming up at the inside. And Jimmy, at this point, is thinking, okay, I can move up the left of Rich and SRI, which he's doing quite well. now Art Pal appears. Jimmy won't be able to see that. Bit of contact with Rich Blues, which moves Jimmy a little bit further over. And then there's the contact with Art Pal. So very difficult really to put any blame on Jimmy for this particular contact. As we look again from Art Pal, as we get to this point, he is quite far behind Jimmy. However, there is space ahead of him, and on this inside line, there is no reason why he can't attempt to make an overtake. Unfortunately for Art Pal though, what is about to happen is his car is going to start drifting over to the right. It's starting to happen now, and just at this point, Jimmy is now also coming left. So this is where both drivers are now going in the opposite directions. We can see that Art Pal is getting further away from the curb, and unfortunately, they both come together. So this is one where we've looked at it and gone, okay, there isn't any one person we could put blame on here. This is just massively unfortunate for Art Pal. And I genuinely don't think Jimmy would have had any idea that the contact would have happened, because a little bit like with the previous one with SRI and Conrad, by the time Conrad was turning in for the corner, he's already done his looking in the mirrors, checking the radar, and thought everything was okay, and then gone to turn in. And for Jimmy, his focus is on those two cars ahead, while Art Pal is quite a bit further behind. So he wouldn't really be able to spot on the radar that Art Pal has closed that gap up. So just massively unfortunate there for Art Pal on that one. Okay, I think we got one more to look at, so let's not hang about. Let's get it sorted. G5, race 6 report, windmill outwipe. Can you tell I couldn't really think of a name for this one? Okay, Art Pal reporting again on race 6 at 9:42. Feel like I was assaulted on the exit of the corner. Okay, so we'll see what the stewards say on this one. Jimmy passes Art Pal on the inside, and there is minor contact that pushes Art Pal slightly wide onto the exit curb. The steward verdict, though, is no penalty. No blame attached to Jimmy. He makes a fair move. His car is under control at the apex, but the curb bounces him into Art Pal mid-corner. It's a racing contact. Again, we could have written loads more, but that's what I'm here for now, to try and explain things a little bit better here. Now, one of the key factors with, I know the decision on this one is, in view of Jimmy here, we do feel that Jimmy was trying to do everything right, everything we would want a driver to do in the position he was in. Okay, so that is definitely a key factor here. So as we see Art Pal through the corner we've just seen on the other one, Rich and Jimmy there, Jimmy making the move up the inside, and we can see them giving plenty of room to each other, bit of contact there. Art Pal dips a wheel out wide. However, as this does carry on, Art Pal does get back ahead of Jimmy. Now, if that's Jimmy letting Art Pal back through, there wouldn't be a penalty anyway. We don't know for certain if it was, but Art Pal does end up back ahead. Okay, so as we see here, from this view, it is going to look like Jimmy goes, "Meow, bosh," and a bit of contact. So I could understand perhaps feeling a little bit abused in that scenario. However, as we look at the other angles, you'll see a lot more detail in it. So for Jimmy, it's a fully fair attempt at an overtake. He's up alongside, he's on the brakes. He actually takes a lot of curb, giving Art Pal loads of space, but the curb bounces him a little bit wide. But Jimmy is still trying to give Art Pal the space on the exit of the corner. So although, yes, there is a tiny bit of contact, and although, yes, Art Pal does end up dipping a wheel, he does end up back ahead of Jimmy, but also Jimmy here is doing everything we would want him to do. He's not late on the brakes, he's giving loads of space, he's unfortunate with the curb, he's giving loads of space. So he's doing all the right things, and I know personally I couldn't penalise somebody for doing all the right things and getting massively unfortunate in this particular scenario. I do, though, understand how, from Art Pal's view, how it may have looked like Jimmy has just ran out wide and made contact with him. That, though, is not how I personally see it. So this is one of those as well where I know it's obviously, as I'm giving the information here, some of it is like stewarding information, some of it is my own personal opinion, or perhaps part of the argument I put forward as a steward. And obviously I haven't got the other stewards here to give their specific details into it. But one of the things I want to mention is we've had in the past where people have tried to do the right thing but done it at the wrong place. So for example, if you need to give someone space, if you need to give someone a position back because you have knocked them off the track, then stopping immediately in the middle of a corner is not the right place to do it. A little bit like at Bathurst, we say if you have contact up and over the mountain and you need to give a position back, wait until you're off the mountain and you're on the Conrod Straight to do it, because that's the safe place to do it. And this is the key point to giving a position back: do it in the nearest safe place, not do it immediately, because by doing it immediately you might be trying to do the right thing but doing it very, very wrong. Now that's different to the situation we've got here with Jimmy. Jimmy is doing all of the right things and just gets massively unfortunate with the curb. I mean, it's one of those where if he'd have actually gone half a car's width to the right, he wouldn't have touched the curb and he wouldn't have bounced across the road. But I personally would find it very difficult to put blame on a driver who is trying to give lots and lots of room to a competitor, especially when we've obviously been saying recently, look guys, there's been too much contact, we want people to be giving each other our number one thing should be give space to your competitors. If we then go penalising people for giving space to their competitors, it would be very, very tough. As another hypothetical situation, and it is something we've had in the past as well. I can't give any specifics because I can't remember, but I know the topic has come up. Let's say instead of being 2 wide, you're 3 wide. Well, if the car in the middle is trying to give space to a car on its left and the middle car moves right a bit, not realising how close the car on the right is and makes contact into them and puts them off the road, now that again is a slightly different scenario, but it would be a situation of a driver trying to do the right thing but unfortunately getting it wrong. Now in that scenario, putting another car off the road, that could come with a penalty if they didn't wait for them, but that's where perhaps in that scenario the driver should be going, sorry mate, I was trying to give the other guy space, I'll wait for you. So very different scenarios there. Now, that doesn't mean that you can always try doing the right thing, you'll get away with stuff. I don't mean that. It's obviously very situation dependent, but I want to praise people who are trying to do the right things. I think that's a good thing to do. There was also something else I thought of, and I've now completely forgot about it, so God knows what that would have been. Right, I'm going to end this in a moment, and we'll see if we get any reports or weird and wonderful things happen in the last 2 races of this particular championship. As I'm sure we mentioned on the commentary, after this championship we will be taking a bit of a break for at least 2 weeks. We will then be having another championship, but something very, very different. Something new, which could be interesting. Whether we'll have any G-spots for that, I do not know. We'll have to wait and see. I may just need to have a little bit of a break because I'm very tired, so I am going to go and get some sleep. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for listening, watching. You know what to do. Like and subscribe. Have a good one, and we'll see you all again soon.